Okay, now idea number 6. Okay, this is the I think this is a classic. It's called a number of names, but how about just let's go right now with the Volkswagen Challenge, right? And it's very simple. Well, the other name for it is the 100-mile test drive, something like that. Here's the idea. Basically, it says the following: that who can get the feel for a car in a 10-minute test drive? Nobody. Nobody, okay? The only way that you can get a real feel for the car is if you drive it slightly far. The only way that you're going to get a feel is if you take it for a journey for real. So the idea here is that for this month of August or whatever, the Volkswagen Challenge is you, Joe Schmo, that may be on the fence about being a buyer or maybe is actively in the market, regardless. All you do is have to bring in your car on a Friday. Okay, here's the key. And you take this VW for a test drive through the weekend. Okay, that's why it's called the 100-mile test drive, the tryout, the getaway. I mean, there's lots of ways to name it. But the whole idea is that it's a swap, it's a tryout, it's a test marriage, it's a hall pass where they get to leave their, and let's be honest about the fine print, you have to bring in a car of equal value, essentially, that they are responsible for leasing, own, or whatever, or set up some type of insurance profile, but let's just make it easier, and it's a swap, and they leave their car there, and they take the VW for a weekend. And I think this is a very important idea I don't want to just gloss over. The idea, I mean, no one's done this before, I don't believe, where they've said, listen, I mean, I know some people have said, hey, if you don't like it, you can take it back on the transaction, or maybe Dodge did that. But this is about a test drive that is for real, where you are able to actually experience it in real-world conditions for a weekend. So, that is the idea, that you leave your car, you leave your keys, you take ours. There's so many ways to express this visually, there's so many ways to address it artistically in terms of taglines, whether you call it the challenge, whether you call it the swap, whether you call it the tryout, whether you call it, again, I mean, at the end of the day, this is born out of the classic marketing coup, disruptive coup, which is the Pepsi challenge, and the way that forced people to confront Pepsi as a contrast to Coke. This idea, at the end of the day, and I gotta also emphasize that if they take the damn car, we have it wired. So did I mention that? I mean, the whole end game with any of these ideas, whether they're in there just for a normal test drive or best drive, that's just going to be 20 minutes, or whether they take it for a 3-day weekend, we imagine having hundreds of hours of footage of a few hundred families throughout the nation who have taken it for 2-3 days and have had these experiences. They've had fights. They've signed a release at the inception of the 3-day free rental, essentially, where they sign away their appearance and all the footage in it. We're having it. There's no way they can erase it. I mean, all that is no. That's just the details and whatever, that's the mechanics of it. But think of what we get at the end. We get a participatory campaign where it's completely disruptive because people will say, hey, you know what? Why don't we try this Volkswagen thing? It doesn't cost any money. All we gotta do is leave our Volvo there, and let's just try it out. And they can, and then every dealer's got to have. It's like first come, first serve. Or you can size up the customer that has the highest value car to get priority. I mean, however you guys want to deal with it on the mechanical level. But you apply to try. So that's another way to say it, apply to try. And then you basically, that type of test drive is a long-form test drive that's reinventing the idea of test drive. And I think it's something that people might do. They're already doing it now for houses. They're saying stay the weekend at the house before you buy it. Now, a car transaction is second only to a house in terms of its intimidation factor and how big it is for people. So I think this idea of letting a person try something out as long as you're backed up from an insurance and or swap with their property point of view, if you're covered that way, letting them have it for 2-3 days can only get them emotionally invested in the product. So that's it. It's called the Volkswagen Challenge, the Volkswagen Swap, the Tryout. We can name it 1,000 things, but that's what it is. The 100-mile test drive, the 1,000-mile test drive, the 3-day test drive, the weekend drive. I mean, that's not important, the name. What's important is the idea, and I think it's a strong one. That's number 6, the challenge, and it's a biggie. Think of the footage. Think of the footage.